Oh, here we go. What's going on? It feels good to be a champion. Central Coast Mariners are the 2023 early champions. It still hasn't sunk in. I mean, I keep thinking it's sunk in. I don't think it will for maybe another couple of weeks until the league settles and there's no football left. But we are here tonight to do a full grand final discussion, bit of a live chat, bit of a conversation here across the internet, and we'd love to hear your guys' takes on the grand final, what you made of it. There's a lot to talk about. There's so much to go through. And look, obviously, being a Mariners fan, like that's the big storyline for me. Focusing on all the fantastic things when it comes to Mariners. But we're going to be talking about Melbourne City tonight. We're going to be talking about Melbourne City because I think that's one of the things that, while it has been an absolute fairy tale for the Central Coast Mariners, this grand final win, the way Melbourne City collapsed in that grand final deserves to be talked about because no one saw that coming as much as Central Coast Mariners winning 6-1 in the grand final. No one saw Melbourne City losing 6-1 in the grand final, regardless of the opposition. That wasn't meant to happen. That was not in the script. Let's jump in the chat. What do we say here? I threw a comment here in the YouTube chat earlier today asking who was your man of the match from the grand final, because there's probably a few you could go for, but the one that many people are saying, and rightly so, is the cum dog himself, Jason Cummings. Lockie's in the chat, says cum dog, is that even a question? We've got Boston in here earlier, said cum dog as well. And good, so good to see all you guys here in the stream and in the live chat. Julian's here. Julian, Western United fan. How you going, mate? Says, hey, Lockie, how has the start of the week been? Surely you've been on the beers after the Central Coast Mariners grand final win. Dude, very much I've been enjoying a grand final win. I don't drink, so but still has been a fantastic weekend for me. And it's just been surreal. That's been the main thing. It's been surreal. It doesn't feel like it's happened. It feels like a dream. Have you guys ever dreamt about A-League matches before? Because I have, right? I mean, especially if you've been watching it for that long. Let me know that. Does anyone dream about the A-League? Because I do. Not often, maybe once every few months or so. I have a dream that I'm in a stadium, like at a match. This is one of those games you dreamt about, as if you wake up grand final, hey guys, I dreamt Mariners won 6-1. And then it happened. Anyway, we've got Taggart in the chat, says, congrats, Lockie, up the coast. Boston saying, sup, Lockie, congratulations on the championship. And of course, Ryan's here. And for those that don't know, Ryan, and Ryan, thanks for tweeting it the other night after the grand final. But Ryan on YouTube in our grand final prediction chat said, as he says here, remember me who jokingly predicted 6-1 to Mariners? If you go back and look, Ryan said 6-1 Mariners. Obviously, as he says here, as a joke. I mean, no one expected Mariners to win 6-1. But Ryan got it spot on. Not 6-0, not 5-1, not 6-2, 6-1. Ryan got it bang on. So there we go, Ryan. What else are we saying here in the chat? Sydney Football TV in the chat says Montgomery truly transformed Central Coast Mariners. Absolutely did. He absolutely did. The way, well, look, not truly transformed. I mean, because the foundation was laid by Alan Stajic, who came in and turned this Mariners team around. But what Nick Montgomery has done in the last couple of years, I mean, it's a completely different squad to that side, 2-3 years ago that Stajic had. What Montgomery has done is just incredible. And you know what the thing is, because we went live talking about the Dolan Warren Awards, and of course the Coach of the Year award, of course, went to Carl Vert. And as we know, a lot of controversy around that one. As we know, Carl Vert won that one, but Nick Montgomery was ineligible because of that red card, that suspension, which we all think is ridiculous. I mean, he's clearly been the best coach in the league, and the grand final win. That grand final win just absolutely tops it off. The fact, it just goes to show how dominant Montgomery has been and how much he deserved that award. So, look, it's ridiculous, but it is what it is. Oh my goodness. Stable Gravity says, I think Jacob deserves a lot of praise for getting those 2 penalties. It was great. I loved it. And the cool thing was how it happened instantly as soon as he came on. The fact that he came on and had an instant impact, within his first 10 minutes in the grand final, his first of the grand final, he wins 2 penalties. I mean, Jacob Farrell, we expect to be linking up with the Ollie Roos for the upcoming tournament, which is starting tomorrow night. I mean, it's probably not long till guys like him and some of the other guys in this Mariners squad are playing in the Socceroos team. And it's something I want to talk about later. We're hearing that apparently the Socceroos squad for the Argentine friendly is being announced tomorrow, being announced Tuesday, tomorrow. So we're going to talk about some Mariners players who could be selected for that team. In fact, let's talk about it now. We've got some chats coming in. Armin M says Samuel Severa should get into the Socceroos team after the game. I 100% agree. Yo, Lockie, thanks for stealing RBB, mate. That's right. It was a bit unusual seeing. I've been to a number of games at Combank Stadium where obviously Wanderers are the home team, so it was a bit bizarre being on the RBB's end. That's for sure. Bailey says Monty should have put Dylan Wenzel-Halls off the bench in the final. He was unlucky, and I remember looking down. Actually, funnily enough, you say that, Bailey. I remember looking down after those last couple substitutions where Maresh and Theo Harris came on, and when there was, I think it was Storm Rue who would come off for dinner, was like had his arm around Wenzel-Halls. So I think it was maybe just a quiet moment where Wenzel-Halls was disappointed that he was the player to not make an appearance in the grand final. Of course, Wenzel-Halls featuring in last year's grand final for Western United. Hey. Julian says that Central Coast Mariners grand final win gave me memories of the West United grand final win. Both clubs were underdogs in the finals and got the job done. Scene celebrations also gave me memories. Another underdog win in this grand final for sure. This is something we have to talk about as well. As Sydney Football TV mentions here, Jason Cummings to the Indian Super League. That's a big loss for you guys. It seems to be happening. It seems like it's all but confirmed. Jason Cummings to the Indian Super League. And look, I mean, it is a loss, but we just have to be thankful that we had him, for the 18 months that we did have him. And he's been a fantastic addition to the Central Coast Mariners squad. What he did in that grand final was just remarkable, scoring a hat trick. He's had such a fantastic impact. And as Cummings has stated publicly, not only has it been a great addition to the Mariners, but it's helped his career. Cummings has spoken publicly in the last couple of days about the impact that Nick Montgomery had on him and his career. And heading to the Indian Super League and, potentially, set to have more success there. Player with the quality of Jason Cummings, he's going to score goals wherever he goes. You get the sense now. So, and I'm sure involved in the Socceroos for many years to come. And we do have to talk about this too. We got another chat here saying Alu Kowal linked with a loan move back to the Mariners. Yeah, and look, it appears to be sort of just a rumor at this stage. Just some words circulating online, but of course we have to address it. Alu Kowal back to the Mariners? I'd take it any day of the week. Let's do it. We all remember the fantastic impact that Alu had in that season 2 years prior. And I remember vividly those 2 goals he scored off the bench against Western United for the Mariners to win 3-2. Alu Kowal's a fantastic striker. Alan Stajic implemented him into the first team and, of course, secured a move over to Stuttgart in Germany, potentially back at loan to get some football and to replace Jason Cummings. Would be great. Would be awesome. Jacob on the chat here says, do you think it was fair for Simon Hill to mention Cummings' transfer to India seconds after scoring one of the biggest goals in club history? Very unfair for the Mariners fans who will watch that back. I was watching the replay earlier tonight, and I know what you're talking about. Like he did mention, I think it got mentioned a couple times that potentially, his last ever game for the Mariners. It didn't really bother me personally. I think it sort of just adds to the narrative, adds weight to the game. The fact that, this is his last game and what an impact to have in your last game. And look, as a Mariners fan, I'm used to players leaving the club. It's not an unusual thing. It's the club have publicly stated that it's a selling club. There's going to be many young players who I'm sure will be securing moves overseas in the off season. So it is what it is. Hey, we've got some other questions coming in here regarding other Australian football topics, which we are definitely happy to talk about. So feel free. Well, feel free to throw them in the chat. Julian, because this is a big one, and I did a video on it earlier tonight. Check it out on the channel if you haven't. What do you think of Anthony Spurs? Looks like it's done and will be confirmed soon. Fantastic. It's epic. It's absolutely a massive piece of news and a massive achievement for Australian football to have an Australian managing a Premier League side and a side like Tottenham. I mean, a club who were in the Champions League final only just a few years ago. It's exciting. It's exciting. Bailey, good question. Do you think Maresh turns will take the number 9? Or they sign a new Cumdog replacement? Well, if Alu comes back, potentially he could be wearing the 9. But yeah, we'd love to see. Well, Maresh wears 10, doesn't he? So I don't think he'll jump off 10. Oh, I see. Actually, are you just talking about the position? Actually, for a second, initially I thought you were talking about kit number. But will Maresh be the main number 9? I think you're asking about Bailey. I would love to see Maresh as the starting number 9. I mean, imagine like him and Tulio up front, the Brazilian combination up front. And then, whether you have Alu Kowal coming off the bench there, Wenzel Hall's in the mix. It's an exciting attacking lineup there. Boston in the chat says, "Yo, Lockie, you guys have honestly inspired me to travel up to the coast and cheer on the Yellow for some games." Boston, great. Boston, do you have a team? But dude, great to hear that I've inspired you to get behind the Coasties. Some more word around Triantis. That's right. Triantis seems to be heading to Sunderland. Indeed, he does. And again, not confirmed yet, but it looks like it's set to happen. Fantastic move for him. And Sunderland, the pretty decent sized club in England, right? I know they're playing in the Championship, but wasn't too long ago they were in the Premier League. And Triantis, what a bright future he has. And was fantastic in the grand final. Absolutely fantastic in the grand final. Let's talk about the grand final itself now, and we're going to pull up some stats. We're going to talk about some events in the grand final, which had a big bearing on how it played out. So let's pull that up now. When you look at the stats too, I mean, I was looking at the stats earlier, and it's quite surprising when you look at some of the numbers that were put out. So let's take a little bit of a look at the stats here. 18 shots for City, the 4 on target. For me, that's the first thing that jumps out. The fact that City weren't terrible in this grand final, right? That's the main thing. City weren't terrible in this grand final. Mariners were just defensively, they were so solid in defense that they were simply not allowing City to get into dangerous positions. Of course, there was that one goal for Melbourne City, which granted, that one chance for Melbourne City, which granted them a way back into the game before halftime. But 4 shots on target from the best team in the league is really surprising. 4 out of 18 for the Mariners, 11 out of 14. That's an incredibly high shot on target rate. That's only 3 shots off target. That might be the highest I've seen from the Mariners this season, as far as I can recall. But there you go. Just goes to show how clinical Mariners were getting up in attack. No surprise, of course, to see City dominating possession. But it was that Mariners counterattack, especially in that second half, that really won the game for them. Fouls there. You can see this was something that was apparent to me, actually. You can see 17 fouls for Melbourne City to Mariners 9. There was a clear plan from Melbourne City to try and nullify that Mariners counterattack to shut down the likes of Benny Cololo and Sam Tavera, who were breaking forward. 17 fouls. For me, there could have been a couple more yellow cards handed out by Chris Beath that weren't. And you can hear that. You can hear my frustration in the vlog. If you haven't checked it out, it's linked in the description if you want to check it out. Check it out afterwards. My grand final vlog. I was very upset with some of the the calls. But yeah, some really surprising stats there, isn't it? Stable Gravity in the chat says we only had 35 possession and won 6-1. Beautiful. And look, it's the Mariners spirit. It's we defend, but when we get the ball, we move forward, we attack, and look, it was fantastic. It was on. This was for me, this was the best game of our season, the best game of the Mariners season. The way we were able to get forward and break down City so easily. And defensively overall, despite that one goal we conceded, which was a great goal for Melbourne City, to be fair. Despite that one goal we conceded, defensively, really, really solid. I want to talk about the lineups too, because there's some really interesting things here. And for Melbourne City, for me, there's two decisions here that cost Melbourne City this grand final. The first one for me is the selection at right back. Nuno Reis, as we know, fantastic defender, one of the best defenders in the A-League. Predominantly a central defender, has played most of his A-League career in the centre of defence. Uh, City opting for Thomas Lamb at the back there in the middle and Nuno Reis out to the right back position, which he has played a number of times this season. But we saw it in that second goal, that Silvera goal. If they had Talbot on there, it would have been a completely different night, potentially. It at least would have provided a bit more competition for Sam Silvera, who was just tearing it up down that left wing. The way Silvera just glided past Nuno Reis for that second goal was just way too easy. Way too easy. And if you have an athletic right back like Callum Talbot in that position, he's going to provide some competition for Sam Silvera. For me, that was a really, really fascinating call by Rado Vidicic, and I think was a real weakness there. And I was listening to the A-Leagues podcast earlier today, and I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Tom Smithies or someone was talking about how they were talking to Nick Montgomery, I think, after the game. And apparently when Sam Silvera saw the team sheet, the City team sheet, his eyes lit up, seeing that Nuno Reis was playing right back. Because if Callum Talbot's there, you know you have a tough matchup, because Callum Talbot has pace, has strength. Nuno Reis isn't able to keep up with someone with the speed of Samuel Silvera. Pretty remarkable, hey? Alpex in the chat says Nuno Reis was absolutely horrendous. Smith in here says Reis got burned by Silvera on more than one occasion. Indeed he did. The other position which really was a fascinating decision for me, and I talked about it during the grand final, my grand final predictions video and the preview live stream, and I was like, City should go for that 3-man midfield and play 3 traditional midfielders. And yes, they did play a 3-man midfield, but they threw Matt Leckie in there. And look, Matt Leckie, as we know, one of Australia's best players right now, but he, for me, is better utilised in the wide areas. Josh Nisbet and Max Ballard were able to dominate this game because they were able to find the space with Matt Leckie drifting out of position at times. Aidan O'Neill, too many times this game, was just left alone and left exposed in defensive midfield there. I think City would have had a better time in this game starting Van der Ven alongside Berisha and O'Neill in a midfield 3, dropping Andrew Naboot and playing Leckie and Tilio as those 2 wingers. Whether Berenguer comes into the squad. I mean, that's the thing. You look at the City bench, and there's so many options there. I mean, they've even been playing Scott Jamieson as a midfielder throughout times this season. I think it would have been a different game if Scott Jamieson, Berenguer, Van der Ven were starting in that midfield. But Rado Vidicic opted to start Andrew Naboot, who had a really shaky game. Terrible foul for that first Mariners penalty as well. Giving that away, that was a terrible blunder by Naboot. It really cost City. It was really concerning for them. And on the other hand, Mariners, I don't know off the top of my head, but they haven't changed this lineup for what feels like the last 2, 3, 4 months. This has been the same Mariners lineup we've seen week in, week out for the last couple of months, right? It's been pretty remarkable seeing this consistency. Hey, let's jump back into the chat. We've got some good questions coming in. Hey, let's talk about the Socceroos. A-League now in the chat. It says, hey, Lockie, wildcard/bolters, would you like to see in the upcoming Socceroos squad? Let's talk about it, actually. Let's talk about the Socceroos squad and potentially players who we could see involved in this lineup, the Socceroos lineup, which is set to be announced tomorrow. For me, there's 3 Mariners players who haven't been called up to the Socceroos, who I wouldn't be surprised if they do get the call up. Those 3 players for me are Samuel Silvera, Josh Nisbet, and Nectar Triantis. I feel like Silvera is probably the most likely out of those 3 to get a call up. He was untouchable in the grand final and has been fantastic all season. The only thing that maybe is going to be tricky for Silvera is the fact that Socceroos have so many good players in wide positions. When you look at Tilio, when you look at Leckie, when you look at Garin Kowal, I mean, who else are we missing? So many players in wide positions, right? Nisbet. I mean, Josh Nisbet, what a story, right? I mean, we talk about it a lot. I mean, the fact that he's 5'3" and he's just dominating midfields, dominating the midfield in so many games. He's such an exciting player to watch. Just because he plays with such confidence, despite his size. I would love to see Nisbet get a call up, and it would just seeing, because I remember seeing, the first time I saw Josh Nisbet, it was just sort of funny. The first time I saw Josh Nisbet play was in the Usain Bolt game, right? Was in the Usain Bolt like friendly match at Central Coast Stadium, and Josh Nisbet came off the bench. There's that great photo of Josh Nisbet lining up against Usain Bolt to come off the bench. Man, would love to see it. Would love to see Socceroo, Josh Nisbet in a Socceroo green and gold. Nectar Triantis, I don't think it'll happen against Argentina. We expect Nectar Triantis to head over to France to join the Olyroos. But Triantis, you know what he reminds me of, and the way sort of his pathway is going is Kai Rolls. Which is maybe a big call. But you think back to, 18 months ago, Kai Rolls having a great season for the Mariners. And then he got the call up to the A-League All-Stars. And then he got the call up to the Socceroos for those playoff matches, right? Against the UAE and Peru. Played well in those. And then starts for the Socceroos at the World Cup. Nectar Triantis is going to have a similar sort of trajectory, in my opinion. It might be a big call. But for me, Nectar Triantis is someone who I'm sure we'll see in green and gold sooner rather than later. All right. What else are we seeing in the chat? Are my comments not coming through? I'm seeing your comments loud and clear, Costa. Alpex comment from earlier saying starting Nabut and Tilio is not the way to go. Yeah, for me, like Nabut off the bench. Just bring Nabut off the bench. It had to start Lecky and had to start Lecky and Tilio in those wide positions, right? Boston supports Sydney FC. Get around the coast and jump in the Yellow Army, dude. Love it. Let's talk about Jason Cummings, because I have seen this a little bit, and I can't understand why Cumdog wants to leave when he's only been at the club for 1.5 years. Look, it's disappointing. Obviously, we'd love to see Jason Cummings to stay long. We would love him to stay longer. But look, I'm sure he's earning big bucks in that move over in India. We can understand his decision. We've seen a lot of Australian players head over to India to play over there. We think of Dimitri Petratos, one of the more recent ones. Yeah, there's not much to be said about it. He's, to be fair, he's conquered Australia. He's come into the A-League. He's now the Mariners' all-time highest goal scorer in a single season, with 20 goals in that hat trick. He beat Daniel McBreen, right, with that hat trick in the grand final, which is pretty remarkable, isn't it? But yeah, man, Jason Cummings, we wish him all the best. Here's an interesting comment. If Caltech was 10 years younger, where would he be? Look, dude, legitimately, like with his strength, with his pace, with the way he reads the game. The guy could be playing at a top league in Europe. Seriously, if he was a teenager coming through, and that's the other thing. There's like no end to the storylines around this Mariners squad when it comes to this grand final. Brian Caltech, his first year as a professional. Nectar Triantis had only played a handful of games for Wanderers last season. It speaks volumes to the Mariners' scouting. Nick Montgomery and Sergio, the assistant, spotting these players, spotting Brian Caltech, who hasn't been given a professional contract, spotting Nectar Triantis at the Wanderers Academy, and putting these guys in as these starting central defenders in the Mariners lineup, putting their faith in them because they saw the talent there. They saw the ability there. It speaks volumes to the quality of Nick Montgomery, especially as a manager, to get the best out of these guys. That's for sure. Is Cumdog going to India? It looks so. It looks it. Thoughts on Demi Petratos to Brisbane? Is that true? Is that legit? That's the first I'm hearing about it, if that's the case. We'll see. We signed Demi Petratos in our Brisbane or Korea mode, that series that we did here on YouTube. Costa's saying Central Coast Mariners have broken the curse. I just thought about all the times Adelaide lost in the semis. The teams that beat them, they lost the grand final. Central Coast Mariners broke the curse. Indeed, they did. Uh, Joel in the chat. How's it going, Joel? Says, just seeing Maresh's reaction when he scored. And after the game, it's clear he has such passion for the club and for the game, even though he didn't get much game time this year. Absolutely, Joel. And it's what makes me feel good as a Mariners fan, the fact that these players who haven't necessarily played that much, I mean, even Wenzel Halls, Jacob Farrell spent a lot of time on the bench second half of the season. These guys, even players who just played, small parts throughout the season, were really just invested in the club and the success. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that celebration for that Maresh goal was absolutely fantastic. And I'll tell you what, we'll put some of the vlog here. We'll put some of the vlog here in the background as we chat. If it wants to play. If it wants to play. If you guys haven't checked out the A-League, my A-League Grand Final vlog, please do. It's probably the video I'm most proud of. Doesn't look like it wants to play for us here. But please check it out if you haven't done so. It's been great. A-League now. Yeah, we're talking about this a bit earlier tonight. Thoughts on Mariners potentially signing Alu Kowal on loan next season. Would love it. Would love to see it happen, especially with Jason Cummings heading out. And look, Alu Kowal was fantastic when Alan Stajic brought him into the lineup. Remember vividly that those 2 goals he scored off the bench against Western United a couple of years ago. We'd love to see Alu back on the coast. Joel says, vlog was excellent, especially for us who couldn't make the game. Cheers, Joel. Glad to hear you enjoyed it. Troy, that's right, Troy. We are champions. How good was Saturday? Dude, it's feeling good. Now that we're talking about it, now that we're like sitting down and talking about it, it's feeling good. I put out a bunch of videos across the weekend. We had, I filmed, what do we do? I filmed like an instant reaction as soon as I was, left the stadium, which just goes for a couple of minutes. And it's my sort of initial thoughts after the final. We've got the vlog, which was the big one, which came out last night. And then if you haven't checked it out, just this afternoon, I uploaded some footage from the Mariners welcome home party at Erin Affair here on the Central Coast. And if you guys want to check that out, it's on the channel as well. Bailey with a good question here about Dan Hall, defender Dan Hall. Do you think Dan Hall will get in the starting lineup when Triantis leaves, or will they sign a new centre back? Dan Hall is absolutely able to slot into that starting lineup. We remember how good Dan Hall was last year. His combination with Kai Rolls, he was fantastic. Yeah, Dan Hall last couple of years has been very, very good. Unlucky for him not to get too much game time this year, but next to Triantis and Brian Kaltak have just been fantastic. Most of Dan Hall's appearances have been in fullback positions. Even in that grand final, he came on at right back, didn't he? But look, if Triantis leaves, which looks like it probably will happen, Dan Hall absolutely just slot into that defense, and it would be a decent replacement in that starting lineup. Indeed. Spencer, how's it going, Spencer? Regular viewer of our Coast Watch live streams, Spencer, Brisbane Roar fan, says, congrats on your team, Lockie. Let's hope next season also features who won the final 10 years ago. Also will be winning next season, which of course would be Brisbane Roar. Brisbane Roar 10 years ago next season. Won against West Sydney Wanderers, did they not? Indeed. Question in here about Brisbane Roar. Ryan says, if Brisbane are going for a few European visa players, as they said today, surely it'll be talented, good players, not washed up strikers like Skepovic or Lascano like we did in previous years. Yeah. If there's one club that needs to fix up their recruitment, it's Brisbane Roar, because goodness me, it hasn't worked out. I mean, you can put Charlie Austin into that package as well. I mean, who knows how Charlie Austin would have gone if he stuck around. But they need to sign some decent players, don't they, Brisbane Roar? Jacob says, excited for the 10 Australia games over the next 17 days. Yes, dude. And I was actually just watching it before. We got to check the scoreline now. As we speak, Australia's women's under-20 side is playing against Iran in Asian Cup qualifying. And Carly Johnson, Western United winger, has already scored 2 fantastic goals in the first half. So there's a lot of stuff happening when it comes to the both men's and women's national teams. Under 17s Asian Cup gets underway next week. We've got the Ollie Roos in action tomorrow. So much going on. Troy says, I've seen all your vids. Thanks, man. I watched them at work today. The night was amazing from start to finish. Love the DJ that was playing in the park. The DJ that was playing in the park? I'm trying to recall what we were referring to. DJ playing in the park? The only thing I can think of is the halftime entertainment. The halftime entertainment was, by the way, for those that weren't there, the halftime entertainment at the grand final was actually really, really, really good. I thought it was really great. The only downside was you couldn't see him. For whatever reason, there were just no lights on the stage, like directed towards the stage. There were so many fireworks and lights going off. Dude, and actually I will say as well, and the grand final itself, the experience for me was one of the best football experiences I've ever had. The music, the lighting, the intensity was 11 out of 10. Seriously, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. Oh, if you could sign one player, who would you sign? Give me, like, realistically, obviously we'll go realistically. If I could sign one player, who would I sign? Let's go for a striker. Let's go for, I'll tell you what. Oh man, there's too many to choose from too. There's too many to choose from. I'll come back to you, double gravity. Is it true that City was shocking us, Aiden? I don't think City were that bad. Just to put a statement out there. Like, Mariners won 6-1. I don't think City were awful. I don't think City were necessarily that bad. As we looked at the stats a moment ago, they had 18 shots. They had 65% possession. They only had 4 shots on target though, which was the problem. Especially in that first half, City had good chances. To City. It easily could have been 2-2 heading into halftime, but Mariners were just more clinical in the day. Boston says, "Yeah, Lockie, I'm going to join the Mariners next season. We're recruiting." Boston jumping on the Mariners bandwagon. It's a good question from Jack here, who asks, "Do you think the Mariners will suffer from their success with departures?" It's a good question. Let's dive into it because there's a lot to talk about. Would love to get your guys' thoughts in the chat now. So let's talk about it because it is almost certain that we're going to see multiple players from this current Mariners squad depart the club. And let's have a look now, which players could be departing the squad. Here is the starting lineup from the grand final. Danny Vukovic, I'd expect him to stick around next season. Same goes for the fullbacks, McGarry, Stormbrue. Brian Kaltak, I mean, might get some interest from overseas. Not one of the younger players, but, he's been great this season. Nectar Triantis, I mean, he's the one we've heard in recent days has been linked with a move to Sunderland. That'll be a blow. But as we talked about just a moment ago, the likes of Dan Hall to slot in to replace him. Max Ballard and Josh Nisbet, 2 fantastic young players. Wouldn't be surprised if they attract interest from overseas. Even someone like Benny Kololo, who isn't necessarily, I think Benny, off the top of my head, is 24, 25. Still, absolutely could be playing somewhere in Europe. Sammy Silvera surely attracting interest from overseas once again. Jason Cummings looks like he's set to depart the club, whether Marco Tullio sticks around as well. There's a decent number of players in this Mariners squad who will probably be departing. Maybe Jacob Farrell when you look at the bench as well. Here's the thing, right? Will we suffer? This question has come up. It's a completely fair question. It's come up the last 3 years in a row, right? The last 3 years in a row. What Mariners have done each year is, rather than lose those players and fall away and get worse and struggle to recruit, Mariners have improved over the last 3 years. When you think of Alan Stajic finishing 5th, knocked out in the elimination finals. Sorry, finishing 6th, didn't we? Finished 3rd. What am I talking about? We lost that elimination final to MacArthur. Anyway, my bad. Finished 3rd. Following season, finished 5th, elimination finals, but still up in there and improving. And then this season, finishing second and then winning the grand final. Mariners have now instilled what they have done now is they've implemented a structure and a system at the club where because we know Mariners are a selling club, I'm sure Monty, Serge, and the Mariners scouts are already preparing ahead. And we've already been hearing rumors of Mariners are looking at academy players from Sydney FC, from West Sydney Wanderers to pick up. There is now a cycle at Central Coast Mariners where they will recruit good players to replace the ones that are departing. It's worked. It's worked. There's examples that we've seen in the last few years, There's prime examples. Lewis Miller departs. I mean, Storm Rue was there to fill his place. Kai Rolls gets called up to the A-League All-Stars. Socceroos call up. Heads over to Scotland to join Hearts. Who comes in? Nectar Triantis. Not many people knew of him. He only had a few games for West Sydney Wanderers. Comes in, one of the best defenders in the league this season. Mariners now have shown in the last few years that they are able to successfully replace the quality players that they lose. That's why everyone's always like, Triantis leaving, Cummings leaving. I'm not too concerned. As long as, people like Nick Montgomery are in charge of this club, we're going to continue to replace these players. And there's good young players coming through the academy. If you watch this Mariners Academy as well, I mean, Miguel DePizio coming through, the Bayless brothers, Sasha Kozewski had a few games this season, the right back. Man, could go on and on. Speaking of some of these more senior players, Spencer asks, should Vukovic retire on a high note? I don't think so. I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. Obviously, it is a fantastic achievement for Danny Vukovic to claim yet another A-League championship. But I don't think so. I think Vukovic seems to be really invested in this squad, and I'm sure he'll continue for at least another season. Lucino says, late to the chat. G'day and congratulations to all Mariners clubs and fans. Wake up with a hangover or what? Thanks for tuning in, Lucino, and no worries for being late at all. Good to see you here. And let's have a look at what else we're saying here in the chat, because there's some good questions coming in, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you've got any more questions regarding the grand final or any other Australian football topics, feel free to throw them in the chat right now. When Vukovic retires, when will Vukovic retire? Bailey's asking here. Maybe after next season. I reckon maybe he'll go one more, then maybe retire. Then it's pure speculation. We don't know. He could go for another 10 years. We love Danny. Interesting question here from Spencer. Does Vukovic winning the league silence the critics, especially with the World Cup controversy with Mitch Langerak? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it silences the critics. He's had a great season, Danny Vukovic. That's all we can say. Natalia asks, and I believe Natalia is asking here, what do you think of Triantis? What do you think of Triantis to Sunderland? We love the autocorrect here. What do we think of triangles to Sunderland? What do we think of Triantis to Sunderland? Dude, huge move for him. Fantastic move. Great to see that a huge club like Sunderland in England is eyeing off fantastic young central defender in Nectar Triantis. So talented. Great move for him. Can't wait to see what the future has in store for Nectar Triantis. Here's an interesting one. Jordan Holmes, good replacement for Danny Vukovic. Big loss for Brisbane Roar. It's a good question, Kurt. Here's a good question. Where do the Mariners improve next year? Where do the Mariners need to improve in next year? I assume you're asking that, Kurt, in terms of positions across the pitch. I mean, the easy answer to that is let's just see who departs the club and then go from there. But for me, if I had to recruit in one position, I would probably go for maybe one more central midfielder. And look, that's nothing against the guys we have here. I mean, Josh Nisbet, Max Ballard, Harry Steele, fantastic. But maybe one more central midfielder, maybe like a right back would be decent as well. Maybe another winger. I mean, it's hard to say because we've got really good depth in just about every position. So we'll have to see who departs the club. Good question here. Does that mean Mariners qualify for Asian Champions League? If not, why? I heard it's only City that qualifies. Pretty crap if that's the case. So no, so Mariners will be playing in the AFC Cup, which is like the second tier of Asian competitions. To put it into European sort of terms, it's like the Champions League, and Mariners will be playing in like the Europa League. That's sort of the way to think about it. This year, it's confused the hell out of me. There was something about the points tally from last season and this season that had something to do with it. All that I can tell you is that Melbourne City are playing Champions League. So there's only just one team that plays Champions League now, and it's different for this year. We have Mariners and Macarthur playing in the AFC Cup. Of course, Macarthur there thanks to their Australia Cup win. Okay, we've got some different questions in here regarding some different A-League clubs. So let's talk about it, because there's going to be a lot of transfer speculation and all sorts of movement going on across the A-League when it comes to many of the clubs. Brisbane Roar are getting rid of all the players who were brought in by Moon. That's why Holmes hasn't been offered a contract extension. I think it's ridiculous, but we'd love to see Langerak to Roar. Langerak to Roar would be cool. Don't know if it's super realistic. I think it's imperative that Brisbane hold on to Jordan Holmes. I think he's one of their better players. Really solid goalkeeper. Very underrated. Jacob, another Brisbane fan here, saying, really hope Brisbane hold on to Gamulka. Hot take, but I think he is a better footballer than Truan. We could cash in on Truan if possible and spend on the rest of the squad. I think Gamulka's a fantastic young midfielder as well. I think you're right there, Jacob. Both fantastic footballers, Gamulka and Truan. But yeah, Gamulka, a solid midfielder. Very, very solid. Well, here's an interesting one. Let's talk some tactics. Bailey says, when Cummings leaves, I think they will play a 4-3-3 with Theoharis, Tulio, and Silvera. That would be an exciting lineup for sure. Would love to still see Benny in that lineup as well. I'd be surprised to see Monty tweak the lineup. I think seeing how well this 4-4-2 system worked, that seems to be Monty's go-to formation. Who knows? Who knows? Well, teams might have figured out Mariners for next season. We do see that sometimes where, teams claim championships. Think of Western United this year, claim the championship and then struggle the following year. If Monty's in charge, I don't think that'll happen again. That's actually a fair question. I don't think anyone's brought it up. And I was going to talk about it tonight. But, how will the Mariners go next year? I'm really curious to see people's ladder predictions in terms of when Mariners will finish next year, right? And what do you guys? Where do you guys think Mariners will finish next year in the ladder? Like, not whether they'll not in terms of finals, how they're going finals. Where do you think they'll finish at the end of the regular season? I'm curious to see what you guys think, because you'd expect them to be towards the top again, right? I mean, we'll see who departs the club. But as I was saying before, Mariners recruitment is so great at the moment. Where will they finish next season? I don't know. We'll have to. It's so tricky in the A-League because teams can jump up. Melbourne Victory might bounce back. Melbourne City should be up there again. Does Sydney FC jump up as well? Western Sydney Wanderers, I think will be very consistent again. Let me know where you think Mariners will finish next year. I think to go top 4 is definitely a fair shout. We'd expect if Mariners have a similar sort of squad, if they don't lose as many players, hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe a top 2 finish. Bailey says, I'll say second, 1 point behind City. And we'd love to see that too. We'd love to see a team give City a run for their money. And I want to talk about Melbourne City in a second too as well. But we'd love to see a team give Melbourne City a run for their money. Melbourne City were absolutely the best team across the regular season. But to close the gap, to give us a bit of a title race there, Premier's Plate race would be exciting, wouldn't it? Julian says, I reckon Mariners will finish first or second next season. Love it. Kurt says, if Monty remains top 2, if he goes top 4. I like that take, Monty. I like that. Kurt. I like that take, Kurt. I think I agree with you there. If Monty was to go, I don't think the team's going to drop down by any means, but might just slip down just a tiny bit. Just a tiny bit. Ryan says next season is going to be interesting. City losing a lot of players. They will drop off, I reckon. And for Mariners, it'll be interesting to see what they do with replacements. Yeah, and look, I want to talk about Melbourne City now, because here's the thing with this grand final from a Melbourne City perspective. Melbourne City, 4 consecutive grand finals. Fantastic achievement. 3 Premier's plates. Incredible, right? So dominant Yet, out of the last 4 grand finals, have only won 1 of those grand finals now out of 4. That's 3 grand final losses. 2 in the last 2 years now. Last year against Western, this year against Mariners, losing 6-1. To lose 6-1 in a grand final, regardless of who you are as a club, is just unacceptable. You can't make it to the final game in the season, the championship game, and collapse like that. To be fair, I said it before, I don't think City were necessarily that bad, but Mariners were just on a different level, and City weren't able to match it. I'm curious to see what happens to City. There's word that Aidan O'Neill's departing, Marco Tilio departing, Tom Glover departing. They've got some players who are in there on loan. Van der Ven and Barisha might not be there next season. It's going to be curious. I'm curious to see how City line up in terms of the personnel next season, and ultimately the coach, Rado Vidicic. Is he the right man to lead City forward? I think City struggled in that grand final and made some wrong decisions tactically. I don't know if Rado Vidicic is the right man to lead City moving forward, and next season might be the season where City drop off a little bit. They'll be playing finals for sure. Don't get me wrong. City will be playing finals for the next 100 years. They've got the resources for it. They will not drop out of the top 6. But I don't know if they'll be as dominant next year. That's for sure. We've got some more predictions here in terms of where Mariners will finish. Lucino says, pending on how many players retained by Mariners, going for top 3. I like it. Joel. Fair point. Joel says, West United didn't even make finals this year. And they won the grand final last year. And as Joel says here as well, West United basically had the same squad. It is true. And look, that's one of the more perplexing storylines in the A-League this year. Like, how did Western United struggle as bad as they did? John Aloisi still at the helm. It's bizarre. Spencer's coming in with an early ladder prediction here. Here we go. Let's dive into it. I'm going to react to Spencer's ladder prediction right here. Next season ladder prediction. City first, Adelaide second, Mariners third, Victory fourth, Roar in fifth, Sydney sixth, Wanderers to drop out to seventh, Perth at eighth, West United ninth, Wellington 10, 11th Newcastle, and 12th Macarthur. Many of those, I think you'll be spot on there, Spencer. I think a lot of those will be correct. Roar jumping up would be a big story, as would Victory. Wanderers dropping out would be interesting. Interesting takes there, Spencer. I don't mind it. Dingo, City fan says embarrassing game for us and does say hashtag Rido out. And I feel like that probably will be the sentiment amongst many City fans, hey, that Rado Vidicic isn't the right man to lead the club moving forward. Jacob also says Vidicic is very average in my opinion. Full season with him in charge, I think they could fall away a bit. Alpac says Rado was never the right man. Yeah, look, they did have some shaky games under Rado Vidicic this season, haven't they? I mean, the loss in the Melbourne derby in the middle of the season, that big loss against Adelaide away, and this grand final sums it up, doesn't it? Troy, that's a fair point. We're talking about West United and how they struggled this year after winning the championship the year before. Troy says, I'd say Western struggled because all the other clubs recruited so strongly. I think that's a good point. I think this season was a big season for recruitment. A lot of sides, when you look at Wanderers, City brought in some fantastic players this season, and Mariners bringing in some good players too. I mean, Western weren't able to compete, were they? Julian's coming in with his top 3 for next season. Mariners, Western, and Brisbane. Oh my gosh. We're getting some hot takes here that Brisbane Roar will be finishing in the top 6. I'm not convinced as of yet. We'll have to wait and see who Brisbane bring in. But my goodness. Will Brisbane Roar make the top 6? Top 3? Spencer talking about his predictions here. Spencer predicted Wanderers to finish in 7th outside the top 6. Says my predictions are based on Wanderers rumours with heaps of departures. But I also think Victory this season was just a hiccup because on paper, Victory Squad looks mad. Dude, Victory Squad absolutely looks mad. It does every year, to be fair. I think Victory, I agree. I think Victory will bounce back. But they got to get some consistency. They've been doing it for the last few years. When you think back to the last couple of seasons now, they drop down. They last year they were one game away from the grand final. This year, dropping down one again. A club of the size of Melbourne Victory, who are, in my opinion, the biggest club in the A League, they can't be doing that. They can't be doing that. It's unacceptable. So yeah. Did you see the reports that Alessandro Sakati wants to play for Australia? Yes, I did. Apparently, he'll be in the squad against Argentina. Also, seen less official rumors that Mo Toure will be in as well. Dude, fingers crossed we see Toure in there as well. He hasn't. There was like a lot of outrage. I remember when he was included in the Olyroos squad, right? And it did cross my mind. I was like, well, what if he's going to be included for the Socceroos squad? Which I think will happen. I mean, he's playing League One football, right? And Alessandro Sakati, I mean, I don't know too much about him. We know that he's a centre back playing in the second division of Italy. Can't say I watch too much Italian second division, but great to hear. He sounds like he's got a lot of potential. A lot of potential. All right. Another comment in here regarding Rado Vidicic. Dr. Dingo says Rado just isn't passionate and encouraging like Paddy. All the players could relate to Kisnorbo as he used to play for us and respected him, but Rado didn't have enough passion. I want to bring up a point there that the Dingo mates here that Rado isn't passionate. Rado Vidicic is a very different character to Patrick Kisnorbo. And maybe that has something to do with it. I mean, we saw in the lead up to the grand final, some of the press conferences, the interviews, Rado is just really chill, really nonchalant. And look, City probably can do that because they're used to playing on the big stage. But you saw the way the Mariners, Montgomery and the players were talking. Mariners were really focused, really sort of intensely focused on this match and really up for it. Whereas Melbourne City were sort of just strolling into the grand final being like, we've got this under control. They didn't in the end, did they? They didn't. So yeah, maybe Rado Vidicic just isn't the right man for a club like City. We'll see. Ooh. Thoughts on Alec Kowal coming back to the coast? Yeah, we talked about it earlier on in the stream, but would love to see Alu back on the coast. Would love to see it. Fantastic player. Would love to see him, it'd be great for his career, get some more game time back here. But I've obviously had a great stint with the club early on, a couple of years ago. Would love to see him back there. Just talking about Rado Vidicic once again about his passion. Bailey says City coach when they scored, he looked like he didn't care. Yeah, and look, we don't know Rado Vidicic personally or anything. Like he seems to be pretty chill as a guy overall, but yeah, if it was Patrick Kisnorbo, you just get the sense that there might have been a bit more intensity, a bit more urgency, especially in that second half to stop that Mariners tsunami, if you will. Troy says, doesn't Fabregas play in Serie B? Would love him to come here next season. He was linked with Sydney FC MacArthur, I believe. Indeed, he was. Almost 12 months ago, Fabregas was. It was Nani and Fabregas. Those were the two ones that were linked. Nani obviously ended up coming over, didn't work out. Dude, we'd love to see Fabregas in the A-League. We'd love to see it. Spencer says, for real, Raw should target Mitch Langruck and Tom Rogic. Rogic would be a big pickup for Brisbane, wouldn't they? Hey guys, we're gonna go for another 5 minutes or so before we jump off. 5-10 minutes. So if you've got any more questions regarding anything Australian football, now's the time to throw it in. Appreciate you guys tuning in for this grand final and A-League's Australian football chat. Thoughts on Ange going to Spurs, dude? I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's exciting for Australian football, isn't it? It's a huge one, and it looks set to happen. I did a video on it earlier tonight if you want to check it out afterwards. But it's just huge for Australian football. It's absolutely massive. Not just Australian football, Australian sport. I mean, to have an Aussie coaching in the biggest football league in the world, it's just monumental. And really curious to see how he goes there at Tottenham. As we know, those that follow the Premier League know that Tottenham are a side who have been struggling of late. So yeah, very curious. Very curious to see how that works out. All right. This would be interesting one. Lingard to Raw. Wouldn't that be great? Spencer, Argentina v Australia live stream? Yes. Confirmed. We will be doing a watch-along for Socceroos v Argentina, which is next week, Thursday night. Yeah, next week, Thursday night. 10 p.m. kickoff Australian Eastern Standard Time. But yeah, make sure you're here on the channel because we'll be doing a live stream for that one. Very excited for it. Can't wait. Can't wait. Bailey says, if Mariners did play 4-3-3, who would you want in that lineup? I mean, let's go for that same back four, obviously, but let's go for like a midfield three. Let's go for that midfield three of like Ballard is at the base of that midfield, Nisbet to the right, Harry Steele to the left. In that midfield three, and then if Cummings is leaving, as he seems to be, we'll go Tulio up through the middle, Benny on the right, Silvera on the left. I mean, unstoppable, right? It'd be cool. It'd be cool. There was one game this season when Mariners sort of did play like almost a 4-3-3. It was more of like a 4-5-1. It was the Wanderers away game where it was 2-2, I believe. And we started Harry Steele with, I think it was just Cummings as the lone striker. We started Harry Steele in a midfield three. Yeah. AUFC fan is in here. Says, hey, Ghostwatch. Says, roaming AUFC fan on Church Street. We interviewed a lot of Happy Mariners fans. Dude, Church Street was pumping with Mariners fans, especially like I was there pre-game. And just like all of the restaurants through Parramatta were just Mariners fans everywhere. Everywhere. Crazy. Oh, here we go. Spencer saying Final Four 2024 Asian Cup predictions. Mine are Aussies in first, Saudi in second, South Korea third, Japan fourth. I'd put Japan a bit higher. I'd say maybe Japan in the final. I'd love to, maybe Australia Japan final and Aussies to get the win. Obviously, yeah, I think Japan got to be in the final for me. How did you celebrate the win, dude? It's been a crazy come down for the last week. We spent a lot of time at the grand final welcome home party yesterday up at Erin Affair. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been good fun, Juicy Jason. Who's your favorite Mariners player ever? I always say Patrick Svajk, but honestly, it could be someone like Sam Silvera. I think he's been fantastic this season. He could be my favorite Mariners player ever. Josh Nisbet's probably up there as well as my favorite Mariners player ever. Ooh, Julian, interesting question. Could Ange help bring and attract Premier League players to the A League? I mean, maybe. Maybe we could see some sort of situation where, maybe some players at Tottenham who are maybe getting towards the end of their careers and looking for, a different challenge. Maybe Ange could be like, "Hey, mate, here is my Ange Postecoglou impression. Hey, mate, you want to." Oh man, hey mate, you want a new challenge? I know the perfect club. Head down to Australia, Central Coast Mariners. We'll give you a run. As he talks to a 38-year-old Harry Kane. Whether Ange is in charge of Spurs in 8 years' time, whether Harry Kane is in there in 8 years' time, I'll have to wait and see. But oh yeah, I'm Ange Postecoglou. Look, Tottenham Hotspur, great club with a great history. Ladies and gentlemen, you just witnessed the worst Ange Postecoglou impression you'll see on the internet tonight. Anyway, what else are we saying here? Asian Cup predictions. First, Iran. Second, Australia. Third, Japan. Fourth, South Korea. Iran could absolutely be out there as well. Absolutely. That's right, Matthew. We love Maresh, the mighty Maresh. Dude, we love Mateus Maresh. What a legend. You sound like Crocodile Dundee. Would you ever do a pub meetup with fans before a game? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. All right, we're gonna sign off in a couple minutes, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this little discussion, talking about some big storylines in the grand final, talking about some of the latest A-League news. Again, we're trying to do more of these live streams. So if there's something you'd be interested in as a regular occurrence, let me know. We can maybe make this a regular live show. Whereas if you guys have been watching, I mean, you get the gist, right? It's a bit more casual. It's relaxed. It's more of a dialogue with you guys right here. Troy says another great stream, mate. Thank you, Troy. Thanks for tuning in as always. We've got some more questions coming in here as we finish off the last couple of minutes. How far do you think City will go in the upcoming ACL campaign? I'm excited to see how Melbourne City go. obviously we're talking about just before about how their squad will look next season. Should still be pretty strong. City got to make it through the group stage, right? I mean, they're one of the best A-League teams we've seen in history, in my opinion, at least. They got to get out of the group stage at least, bare minimum, right? Bare minimum. Spencer says City knocked out first round. AOFC fan, we tried to find you on Church Street for an interview. I was able to find you. Dude, I'm so sorry I missed you, man. That would have been great fun. That would have been great. Matthew says Lapana off to City. Apparently, Kual headed. Apparently headed back to Maris on loan from Stuttgart. Would love to see Kual obviously back on the coast, and yeah, Lapana to City. That's a big pickup for City. Lapana is a very promising midfielder. What else are we saying here? Can we do a live stream every 4 days? That's very specific, Bailey. But look, there'll be plenty of streams coming up. We've got plenty of Australian football action with the under 20s in action. We've got the under 23s coming up soon, under 17s, the Joeys playing in the Asian Cup real soon. So I'm sure we'll do some streams around that. Ryan in here says, love your streams, Lockie. Thank you, Ryan. I'll try my best predicting another crazy score in your streams. Ryan, that's it. You're the lucky charm, Ryan. You just got to come in with your prediction and it'll happen. So please predict for the Mariners to win the AFC Cup and win in the final 7-0. We'd love to see that. Oh, here we go. Do you think there should be a Fabrizio Romano type account who focuses on the A-League? Would love one. Well, if you want one, check out Aussie Scout on Twitter. He seems to be very reliable. I follow Aussie Scout on Twitter, and he seems to be quite reliable. Jacob says, have a good night, Lockie. Have a good night, Jacob. And everyone who's tuned in tonight, I appreciate so much. If you have enjoyed the live stream, hit like right now if you want to show support. We've got a bunch of content coming out real soon. Plenty of news. Transfer stuff is coming up as well. It's going to be crazy. The off season, it doesn't stop, does it? Women's World Cup coming up in a couple months' time as well. It doesn't stop. So stay subscribed if you want to keep up to date to all of the sweet content. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the grand final discussion. And this has been a very therapeutic for me just to let out my emotions and talk about it with you guys. So, hey, enjoy the rest of your week. I genuinely mean that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.